Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm your host, Matt Scott, and I'm here with the illustrious automotive journalist, Chris Collard. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have you on. Chris has a phenomenal story in the automotive, overland, off-road world. He's one of, you're one of the big boys of automotive journalism in the off-road space. You've been doing this for a lot longer than I have.
Matt, did you get a contractor to enlarge that door so I can get my head out when I leave? It's swelling. Thank you. Appreciate the compliment. But you know what? I'm just a normal guy. Honestly,
sure.
I'm just a normal guy, just doing some really cool stuff.
And a special thanks to Onyx for supporting this week's podcast. Are you tired of searching for a campsite only to find it packed or off limits? With Onyx Off-Road's new motorized dispersed camping layer, you can now see legal off-grid camping spots in national forests right in the app. Plan ahead, avoid the crowds, and camp confidently knowing you're on public land where it's allowed. Download Onyx Off-Road today and find your own space. Thanks again, Onyx.
So you've been doing this for decades. We started working together in 2011 when you were the editor of Overland Journal. You know, I always think I learned a lot from you. You've always been very professional in this space, particularly in a space where people seem to be becoming, maybe less and less professional, a little bit more casual. Like you've always maintained this very, very, professional standard of your work. And it's just so good to have you on, man.
Oh, Matt, it's been a long time since we've sat at a table together, so I'm glad to be here.
Usually there's tequila involved, but it's a little too early. It is noon o'clock somewhere.
It is. It reminds me of a story in Baja. So the 3 o'clock Don Julio stop.
You know what?
Became a trend.
Well, it's near 3.
Somewhere.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, we didn't bring the tequila. So I'm just excited for this. So have you driven anything interesting lately?
I've got my Dodge up here with a camper on it, which is interesting to me because I'm not used to actually having a camper. It's like the life of luxury.
Is this the unicorn Dodge that you found?
Right. Yeah.
And it had no miles on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on with that thing?
Just happy camper.
It still has 12 miles on it?
It had super low miles, one owner, old guy.
What year is it?
It's a 99. It's a
99,
99,
so that's
2500 with a 5.9 Cummins. So yeah, I love it. It's awesome. So it's my tow rig.
Yeah.
It's not. I have a pop-up camper on it right now, and it's not like a vehicle that I would take down to Baja because you would just shake the thing apart, so to speak, and the stuff that we do. But yeah, it's exciting. And on the back of it, I've got my Expedition Jeep.
Awesome.
On a trailer.
You have Mark's. Is this Mark Smith's?
It's one of the 5. So it's not his personal, but it was one of the 5 Expedition de las Americas CJ7s.
I would love for you to school me on that trip.
Well, we can do that. We'll go for a drive later on, and you can drive it.
So for those, there's a part of the world, if you're familiar with this podcast, you probably know what the Darien Gap is. It's the unpassable piece between Panama and Colombia that, you just can't drive through there. There's a myriad of reasons why there's no highway connecting it. We've had a little bit of a drug problem in the last 50 years in this country, most countries. So that keeps a nice little buffer between the Colombian Bam Bam and the supply routes. But you can't drive through it. And geez, when did they do that trip?
So that was in 1978 and 79. So a little backstory on it is that Mark always had the dream of driving from Ushuaia to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. So basically tip to tip, across the Americas and across the Darien Gap. Prior to that, John Blashford Schnell had done it with the British Army and the Panamanian Army.
They had some support.
They had 300 people, and they had huge support. But Mark's dream was to do it. I mean, he was one of the founders of Jeepers Jamboree. Yeah. And it's like, we don't need all that. We can do it with just 5 vehicles and 13 guys. Yeah. And that was his dream. So they got some support from Jeep, and basically the Jeep gave him the vehicles. And shipped them to Valparaiso, and drove down to Ushuaia and turned around and headed north.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How long did it take them to do that?
The whole trip was about 6 months. 6 months and about 21,000 miles. The Darien section of it was 31 days.
That's a lot of time in the jungle.
John Blashford Snell was 90 days. So
Wow.
they barely made it through the dry season. What is considered the dry
Considered
season
the dry season.
is just
Being
less,
from Arizona, I might
just
have a
less
different
wet.
interpretation.
It's just less wet. So yeah, it was they came in from the south, so they got to Turbo and put the vehicles on a barge and across the Atrado and up Rio Cacaricas, and basically dropped them all on a swampy embankment north of a village called Rio Americana. And headed north. And at that time, the Pan American Highway had stopped just shy of Yavisa.
Yeah. And it
which
kind
is
of still ends there now.
Technically, it does.
Yeah.
That's as far as you can go without permits. And if you have permits, you can get actually into the Darien proper.
And is that because it's also a tribal area?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So on the Panamanian side, you've got Kuna is the primary tribe on the Panamanian side. At least south of Ibiza, it's different if you go towards the Caribbean. And then once you get into the Colombian side, it's Embera. And they don't like each other. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd say you're absolutely right. It's historically, I mean, going back 400 years, it's El Tarpon, which means the stopper, which means people just don't go there.
It's a really tall fence between neighbors, but going back to Mark Smith and all this stuff, that's kind of, in a way, your story kind of starts and revolves around this in some way. Back when you were a UPS driver in kind of the area of the Rubicon, Georgetown kind of area, I think, and you were delivering to Mark Smith, and this was a side hustle, so to speak, that became a full-time job, a passion, and led you to be like this very experienced and respected person. So what was that journey like for you? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that can really relate to having a normal job and daydreaming of adventure, and you were able to turn your life into it.
Yeah, so, I was in the area. I mean, my first time on the Rubicon was 84. I'd just gotten a Toyota four-wheel drive pickup, and I thought, all right, don't tell me you were born that year, man.
I was born in 90.
You were
It's
born
even worse.
in 90. Oh, God. Okay, all right, that puts things in perspective. I'm one of the old guys that they used to call old guys.
Yeah.
So I was super familiar with the area. We'd been up there, it was like the place to go. That's kind of where I learned how to drive technical trails.
Yeah.
But if we heard that Mark Smith was going to be up there, it was just like, oh, no way, Mark's going to be here. It's like, man, I see, like flying into the Springs. I'd love to meet him. And years later, I ended up, as a UPS guy, and I was just a UPS driver. And we talked, and he realized I was in that four-wheel drive circles, and asked me if I wanted to start working with him and his team on some of the events with Jeep Jamboree USA around the country. So I started traveling on weekends out to different events. And at one point, I was on a flight with Mark. Mark, of course, always got first class because he was like gold medallion, diamond, whatever.
Yeah.
And he bumped me up to first class with him, and he was, he's kind of drilling me. It's like, what are you going to do? You like being a UPS guy? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's a good job. I'm not going to, it's good pay, good benefits, all that stuff. It's like, but I dream of doing other stuff, and I dream of being a photographer. And he says, well, kid, you better get off your beep. And family-friendly comment there. Get off your ass and do it. It's like nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to help you do it unless you make a decision to do it. And it was kind of I had a couple of people that really prompted me to just jump off the bridge.
Yeah.
Prepare myself for it, but jump off the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's these days being a content creator or being a even to some degree a journalist or a YouTuber or whatever it is, like it's not as big of a jump as it used to be. This was it was not a normal career path, certainly.
We were shooting film, you know,
Yeah.
it was the film days. It was before there was anything called social media.
Yeah.
So if you got your information, it was from, the internet was there, but it was just coming about, so to speak. And, you know, information was conveyed in newspapers and magazines. And,
Yeah.
that's,
So what was the first story that you got published?
it was actually on South America, the 1998 trip.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was in 1998, there was a 20th anniversary reunion trip back to South America with 3 of the original expedition jeeps. I found out about it. I was their UPS guy, and I'm like, hey, whoa, what?
How do I do
How
this?
do I do? Can I go? And I was able to be part of that project, which was amazing.
So the journey kind of starts in 1998, and then where did that trip start?
It started in Oakland, getting the vehicles on the ship, and we're in containers, and then
And they were the 3 of the original CJ5s?
7th.
7s. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then basically we flew in, you know, into Valparaiso. Spent about 4 or 5 days getting through customs and aduana, and then started from there. So yeah, it was really cool to be involved with that.
And then what
part of
was
it.
the route for that trip? Was that another Darien?
No,
camp
it was
trip?
not. No.
Okay.
So for clarification, it was not. It was just South America.
Okay.
And it was from basically Lima, Peru, across to Bolivia.
Okay.
Yeah, Puno, down through Bolivia into Argentina and up through Chile.
It would have to have been crazy to go to some of those places late 90s. I mean, I know that it wasn't that long ago, but you're saying like there's no internet, there's no digital cameras, there's no anything like, there's very little internet.
And
back then.
yeah, I had to make a call. I had a phone card that you make a call at a payphone, and then you dial in your code for the credit, and then it puts you through to an international. Yeah,
Sure.
I know.
Apparently that was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing. We had these things called dial phones back then too.
Yeah. I don't know. I was
So
8.
different world though, but in contrast, talking with Al and like Banjo Bob, the OGs that were on that trip with us, there's so much. Even in 1998, there was so much more pavement than there was just 20 years prior. And I have a vehicle in Uruguay that I've had in Chile, and anyway, bought it with a friend of mine.
Is that the one that you bought with Christian?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
The 4Runner?
Yes, the
Yeah,
4Runner.
Awesome.
But there's so much more pavement, and you jump forward another 20 years, and South America is still awesome and wild, but you have to try a little harder to get off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where did that story? So that's 1998, and then where did that story get published?
It was in Four-Wheel Drive and Sport Utility magazine. So
Awesome.
one that nobody remembers now. It was
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal back then, yeah. And so I was trying to get published in I started writing for my Four-Wheel Drive Club's monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to
You gotta start
practice here.
somewhere,
And then
yeah.
the Cal Four-Wheel monthly newsletter. And I mean, when I jumped off the bridge, I bought a book by a guy named John Shaw, and in there was a very valuable message, and it was that if you want to sell a photograph, you need to sell it with a great story.
Yeah.
Because the times are changing in most media outlets. It's like you got to give them a turnkey package. And I did not know the difference between a comma and a period at the time. English was my least best subject.
We have that in common for when I started too.
There we
You
go.
used to edit my stuff, you know.
So I went back to school. I'm like, okay, I got to learn the difference between a
Yep.
colon and a semicolon and sentence structure and all that stuff. So that was a really valuable lesson. And to touch on something that you said earlier about professionalism and quality of content, I was in northern Greenland with a guy named Franz Lanting. He's a National Geographic photographer in residence. And he knew the direction I was going. This was a paid photography workshop that I was on. And he just said, never let anything out in public that's not absolutely your best work, because it will come back around. If you throw something out there that's just half-witted, if it's crap, it will come back around.
That's hard
It's going to
these
have your
days.
name on it.
Yeah, because there's so much volume of content.
I know.
Like, I struggle with that on like Instagram. You're like part of. I think being in media is you kind of have to have a little bit of a social presence. But then you're like, do I post the iPhone photo? Do I post this? Like, is it, you know, like you're trying to keep up.
All right. So I did a photography column for Tread Magazine for a couple of years. And, you know, we mentioned the iPhone. I also do commercial photography for Ram trucks and Jeep and auto manufacturers and stuff. The iPhone, for those listening, you can't see, I have my iPhone in my hand, iPhone 15. They're amazing.
Yeah.
They can't do everything, but can you publish? I mean, that's what everybody's using for social media.
I use it now for like interior photos for like, you know, for automotive reviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so, because I mean, it's just a wide angle. It's there, and I mean, lenses are expensive these days, you know. So
they work great. So you know, there's an old adage that the best camera for any photograph is the one that's in your hand, or your pocket. So don't worry about it. Use your iPhone. They're amazing.
Oh man! So you've written for. I'm going to collectively say everyone, which I think is cool, but also a lot of international stuff. I know that you've done a lot of stuff with like 4x4 Australia. You've written for some Russian magazines. You know, that is, what's that like to not only contribute in the market that you know in the United States, but then also, I mean, in countries that don't even share an alphabet.
It's wonderful. It's because you meet so many people. I've met so many people. I mean, the way that started, I was at the SEMA show around 2000, 2001, something like that, when I was just getting going. And Gary and Monica Westcott, of course, they had their turtle. Expedition. Yeah, the Turtle 5 was there on display. And I accidentally stepped in front of a guy that was taking a picture. And I realized I'm like, oh, excuse me, sorry. And he's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. I'm like, accent. I waited till he was done. I said, where are you from? And he reaches out his hand and to shake mine, and he says, Andre, 4x4 Magazine, Moscow. And Matt, it turned a light bulb on in my head, because I was busting my tail trying to do an article, and you sell it to one outlet, and obviously you can't sell it to a bunch of outlets because, you know, that's just taboo. Nobody buys anything from you again if you do that.
Yeah.
But it turned on the light bulb. So I said, we need to talk. And I spent the next, 6 or 7, I still do it. I'm always hunting down new outlets. But I spent the next 6 or 7 years finding magazines in Italy and France and Spain and the UK and Australia, South Africa, Czechoslovakia, Malaysia. I mean, go down the list.
Yep.
All non-competing, mostly different languages. They don't care if that story is in a different country in a different language. So
it's one package that you can deliver.
That's right, and they translate. I translated the first few to a Spanish magazine. I'm like, this doesn't work. If it's not your native tongue. Yeah. So it, not only from a business standpoint, it allowed me to do a story wherever it was, or whatever it was, and sell it to a whole bunch of different outlets. They didn't pay a ton, but the aggregate made it worthwhile.
Yeah.
But even more than that, like I remember the first Outback Challenge that I shot in Australia in 2005. I was able to, and I was kind of like the wild card coming in.
Yeah.
Somewhat of an unknown, but Jim Jackson was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll support you in getting down there a little bit. He was the guy that brought ARB to the Americas.
The U.S., yeah.
And I was able to put that story out to maybe 10 different international magazines. Yeah. And so the promoters of the event were like,
love you.
They're like, come back next year.
Yeah.
And then on the next event, I would, Croatia, whatever it was, I would say, hey, I'm Joe, journalist in the United States, interested in your event.
But I also do this.
This is what I just did on the last one. Yeah. And people would look at that. The promoters would be like, oh, we want that kind of exposure.
Yeah.
So it kind of snowballed.
So
in a good way.
So let's fast forward to like kind of the mid 2000s, and that was kind of your first big Africa trip, and you've been back a lot. But what was it like the first time you got off the plane there in Africa?
Magical.
Yeah.
So that would have been in 2002. And I went with my college roommate, Alan Andrews, and we just flew into Cape Town. We hired a vehicle for a month, and it was a Toyota Hilux with 2 rooftop tents on it. Had a kind of a defined route, but undefined in that we were going to go anywhere we want, but we had to be in a few places because of the reservations in the national parks and stuff. And it was awesome. It was like just two guys on the loose in Africa.
What was your vague route?
We went just north, crossed over at Orange River Canyon on the border into Namibia, and spent quite a bit of time in Namibia.
Namibia is great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sosafli and the Quiver Tree Forest and up the Skeleton Coast. Actually, they won't let you in the Skeleton Coast, so we went around the backside. Yeah. We might have gotten in trouble.
There's a few riverbeds you can drive
right.
into, I
yeah,
hear.
The Oanab and the Warusib, they all lead into that, the Skeleton Coast. The Himba area up to the north.
The Himba people are super cool. The hack for getting into the Skeleton Coast is if you want to go camping, you have to get like proper permits. But if you stay in one of the lodges, either in Movi Bay or Terrace Bay,
then you have access.
You can just walk right in, and you don't have to do, because it's not easy to get permits there.
Right.
For anybody listening.
We ran into one of their patrols, so we went I think it was the Warusib is the one to the south, and then up the mountain range, and then came down the Wanab. And we ran into one of their patrols and told us that we weren't supposed to be there. And I was like, okay, well, is this part of your concessions, your concessionary land? And he was like, well, we just don't like people here. I'm like, but it's not that we're not allowed to be here. You just don't like people here.
Yeah.
He was like, they didn't like us.
Yeah.
I wasn't being a jerk. I'm just like, this is open land for non-clients. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's Africa's just such an interesting thing. It's been a place that I love, and it's so accessible. Mm-hmm. I've said this before on the podcast, but for what a trip to Europe will cost you, these overland trips always seem, from the outside to be like very expensive, right? Yeah. And they're not cheap, right? Like you're going to have to put some work in it and save some money and whatever, but for the cost of a European holiday, you can do one of these adventures in Africa.
Matt, you can, and you've done this stuff. So I think most people, fear is such a limiting factor in our lives, everybody's lives, my life, your life, people that have a normal job that think, oh, Africa, can I go there and just hire a vehicle, which means rent a vehicle, and just take off with a map? It sounds really scary.
Yeah.
But it is totally attainable and doable. And like you'll run into mom and dad with their 2 kids from England or from New Zealand or whatever, and they're doing the same thing you are. They got a map and they got a vehicle, and they're just going and checking out Africa, and they're camping in riverbeds. I mean, it's not unobtaining. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cheap to rent a Hilux. It's obviously cheap to cook your own food versus eating at a Michelin star restaurant in Europe or whatever. It's all about those trade-offs, but it is doable, and you're a byproduct of the information you take in, and a lot of the information that we take in leads us to think that the world is not a super safe place. But you can face the same issues anywhere in the world, right? You do have to have a good understanding of where you are. You don't want to put yourself into bad situations.
You're not going to go just meandering around parts of Cape Town.
Yeah.
But you're not going to meander around parts of Los Angeles or New York or other Philadelphia.
It's the same thing. Rural America is generally, nothing's ever going to happen to you.
Right.
Nothing's going to really happen to you in rural. There's no people in rural Africa. There are, but.
So last night I camped in northern Idaho coming up here. I just pulled off a canyon and camped next to a river. No, I feel as safe there as I did in camping in places in Namibia or Zimbabwe or Zambia, short of We don't have lions
Yeah,
and
there are.
elephants and, baboons that are going to come in and shred anything you leave on the ground under your tent or under your truck.
I remember wild camping, the first time I was wild camping and heard a lion.
Oh, yeah.
And that is an interesting one. You're actually more prepared for it than you think. Like it unlocks something deep down inside. But so let's go to another trip. So 2006, kind of the next trip, and this is where I started kind of seeing some of your stuff. I was like, 2006, I got my driver's license, and I'm picking up all the magazines.
2006?
2006, I got my driver's license. Yeah, I know.
That's awesome.
I started driving.
what
I
you're
started
doing now.
racing in 1995.
We're going to change this interview to you because I think you were like 18 years old and you were working down in Panama, weren't you?
I was 20 or 21
20,
when I was
right.
running that Overland hostel in Panama. Yeah, so I'm young, but I'm still an old guy in this world. So 2006, Venezuela, which is an interesting thing. Like there's these places in the world where, due to politics, you just don't end up going, right? So they're open for a period of time, so to speak, and then they've been closed. Venezuela, I mean, I know in theory you can go, but it's not really advised right now. But what was Venezuela like in 2006?
Okay, so I had just gotten back from Greenland. That trip I
Low
mentioned.
key.
Well, I had just gotten back from Greenland, yeah, and like a week later I was heading to Venezuela. So I landed in Caracas. I was there with a guy named Felipe, who owns a company called Jumbach 4x4,
Okay.
ARB distributor.
All right.
So it was a trip with them down, basically trying to get into Angel Falls the back way. So most people
wow.
fly in and they take a boat up, to Canaima, and then they take a boat up to
Yeah.
the falls. So now this was going to be a 4x4 trip across the Grand Savannah. But how was Venezuela? So I was told, do not leave your hotel. So he had somebody pick me up. We went to a hotel. He goes, do not let Collard go walking around on the streets.
Yeah.
Because Jim apprised him of, this is Jim Jackson, he apprised him of who I was and what I like to do. He goes, do not leave the hotel. We have a higher kidnapping rate than El Salvador.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll take his word on it. So I waited. So yeah, I mean, Venezuela as a whole was amazing. The trip was awesome. We went south basically for a day and a half.
It looks like such a diverse country, ecologically, topographically, but frankly,
Politically,
I know so little about it.
political armpit.
Yeah.
Just corruption. So Hugo Chavez, the day before we landed, Hugo Chavez was on the UN floor and he said, the white devil stood here yesterday. That was George Bush. So when we got off, there were like billboards and paintings, murals on walls of an Uncle Sam with a bloody dagger and an American flag. And it was not necessarily a friendly environment.
Oh, welcoming.
Yeah. It definitely gave me a reason to be cautious and understand.
And 2006, this isn't that long after 9/11. We're at war.
Yeah, we're kind of going after everybody. And Hugo Chavez obviously had the Venezuelan government had close ties with some of the people that are not necessarily our allies.
Yeah.
So, that was the word. Once we got away from Caracas, I mean, obviously it's an armed country. Every gas station has an armed guard with a shotgun. There's a lot of crime. But you get away from Caracas, and like we were mentioning about big cities, it's like you get out into the world where the normal people live.
Yeah.
And the people are wonderful, and just a vast wilderness of jungles and swamps. So we basically from La Paragua, which is like the end of the paved road, it turns into the Grand Savannah, which was flooded. So we had to, when we got to where we realized we couldn't get any further anymore, we used a mirror to signal a guy on an island to bring the barge over. And, yeah, so we waited a day for the barge to come, and we, loaded our vehicles on it, and we couldn't get all the way to the other side, so we spent the night on an island, and wonderful because his family lived there, the barge owner.
Yeah.
His family lived there, so full immersion into hunting caimans in the middle of the night with two drunk Venezuelans and shotguns. They're like, we're going to go hunt caimans. Do you want to go? And,
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, absolutely.
Probably not going to do this again. So
How often does that opportunity come up? So,
No. It doesn't. It doesn't really come up.
Yeah, so it was overall, it was just an amazing trip. We had mechanical problems. We got basically 2 days into the jungle. The vehicles, you're going to find this typical of international travel when you're trying to source vehicles, is that we thought we were going to have vehicles with all the same tires and the same size tires, and blah, blah, blah. It didn't happen. And the jungle tracks are super narrow. They're made by 78 series Land Cruisers with very tall, skinny tires.
Yeah.
And we had wide, fat tires, so it was just destroying our tires.
Yeah.
We got down to one spare, and we're like, we should probably head back and find a different way to get to Angel Falls.
Yeah.
So 2 days in, 2 days back out, and we're like, well, we still got to go. So we found a plane. We found a guy with a 186 that could drop us off at a jungle airstrip, at a place called La Blanca, and a little village. And I used to fly. I was a pilot for my younger days, and we're flying in. And first of all, the guy had the weight and balance on this plane. Everything was piled on the back. Like I kept putting bags forward, and he's like, he got pissed off. I don't know what he said to me, but he's like,
Here's mad at you.
landed on this muddy airstrip, and then basically hiked about maybe the last 15 miles over a bunch of unknown mountains, and came across the lights, came over a ridge. It was pitch black, middle of the night, came over a ridge, and there were the lights of Canaima down in the valley. I was like, yes.
You know, knowing when to turn back when you're on whether it's a 4-wheel drive trip, a larger expedition or whatever, that's a challenge, you know, because everything, you get certain types of people together and their mind just tells them move forward,
Mm-hmm.
but you can get yourself into a sticky pickle
Right.
quite quickly because you need tires to move, and when you have none of them, it is bad.
Yeah. You know, it was the right decision. It was just a series of challenges with, not having the same vehicles with the same tall, skinny tires, because that was the original plan. But, when you travel in third world countries and different places, stuff happens. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's like the trip that Sam Watson and I did to Cambodia and then 2 weeks in Kenya. Both of the vehicles that Sam had lined up for that trip, which were Defenders, neither of them panned out. So we were scrambling.
I remember you doing that trip in Cambodia because I was doing a lot of travels in Southeast Asia at a similar time. And it always amazes me that Southeast Asia doesn't end up on kind of this overland radar that much. Like
another amazing place.
It's a lovely place.
Beautiful. Inexpensive to travel. For the most part, wonderful people. I mean, you look at areas that have had, really, really rough backgrounds.
Yeah.
Cambodia, Vietnam. It's like, the
Yeah,
Khmer Rouge.
Cambodia particularly is crazy.
The Khmer Rouge basically assassinated a third of the population after the Vietnam War. But I think you've traveled there. It's like, but what you find is that the people are so vibrant and alive, and it's like, they still have kind of a little bit of an oppressive government, but they are excited.
Yeah, I think
it's like
the
a hive
Prime
of energy.
Minister of Cambodia has the largest private military, and that's kind of what solidifies that power.
Some of the Khmer Rouge are still in the government.
I
can
went
believe
to
that.
one of the universities I went to, usually in the summer to kind of get more credits, had a phenomenal Southeast Asian studies program because I went to school for international studies. And one of my professors was like in the hut when Pol Pot died. Like they had to have, I think he was like a UN observer, like, okay, this guy's dead. Geez,
Wow.
I'd love to remember that guy's name, but just absolutely crazy country. Southeast Asia in general is just like, we love to talk about these trips, but I also like to always bring it back. Like, here's how you can do it. Well, get on a plane.
You can do it.
And rent a scooter, rent a small motorcycle, bus, train. It's all so accessible there.
And scooter's a great suggestion.
That's what Laura and I always did.
Okay. And they're inexpensive. They're light. You're going to get wet.
That's what we did. That's what we did Vietnam in. It was, we're both fairly tall, and those scooters ergonomically are not designed for a 6'3" dude. They're just a little small. So I think next time I've done several trips there on scooters. I think next time the Honda makes that little like 125 kind of dirt
Small
bike
motorcycle, yeah.
just like really small, keep it simple. But you can do this. Like you can fly in, rent a scooter in Hanoi and drop it in Ho Chi Minh.
Right.
You can do that in Thailand. You can do that in Cambodia. Myanmar gets a little weird with motorcycles, but such a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think again, it's that it's the unknown, the fear of the unknown that keeps so many of us from doing things.
yeah, it sounds cliche, but you really do realize the more you travel that people just want the same things in life. Most people are just going around their daily life. But I mean, geez, for 20 years we've had this image of like these radicalized people or angry people or war or corruption or this.
Not
Boy,
going
like
to say,
you're saying, it's always in the cities.
not going to say they're not out there.
Yeah, it's
But-
there.
But as you said, most people, they want to raise their families. They want to provide for their children. They want their kids to have a better life than they did. I mean, it's most people, when you get away from the political element. Lois Price, good example. All of her trips are around.
Yeah.
She goes, they are the most wonderful people. And their message was just please tell Britain, tell America, it's like, we're not all terrorists. We want to be like you. We just kind of are stuck.
We're a little sidelined right now.
Right. It's the political side. So
Yeah.
so rolling back to Venezuela and Angel Falls, the whole idea was getting to Angel Falls, and we did accomplish that. We ended up renting the plane. I mean, that was a little scary because, like I said, I used to fly and we're like zipping through clouds and almost on IFR conditions, and I'm like. Coming into this jungle airstrip, and we landed, and the gear was just rattling like crazy. I'm like, come on, baby, hold up. Okay, out of the plane, grab our bags. Happier on foot.
I always joke, I'm like, I think planes are cool. I think getting like a private pilot's license would be great. But I'm way too ADD for the regulations. But like flying in Africa or South America sounds great. Like the planes I've been in Africa, it's like, the gauges are all broken. You're in a Cessna.
Doing Hail Marys.
You're in some Cessna Grand Caravan or something, and like you're like, it's got a glass cockpit, but none of it is working, or it says like subscription lapsed or whatever, and you're just like, oh yeah, well the mountain's there and this is here, and I think the landing strip's somewhere over there. That sounds fun.
We take our chances when we do that. I mean, I have a great. I have a lot of confidence in general aviation, but when you get into some third world countries, it's like the whole maintenance. I had a picture of the toolbox for the mechanic at the airport, and it's basically there's a welder and a grinder and a big hammer.
Somehow I think that these aircraft aren't getting their FAA.
They don't get the 100-hour inspection now.
Yeah.
But one might take me down someday. I don't know, but you have to try to make the best decision when you're there.
Yeah.
It happened even on that same trip. During that between the La Paragua and camping on the island and stuff, I was doing my business in the morning out by the bushes, and all of a sudden you hear a helicopter coming in low. It was like, I'm like, that's kind of weird. Yeah, he comes out on the deck, probably 20 feet over my head. It lands right in front of me, and I'm just kind of cleaning things up. And I'm like, okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey,
appreciate
give him
that.
away. It was a friend of Felipe's. He's like, oh, I just come down to visit. So from a photographic opportunity, it's like we were on that island. We're pushing vehicles across this huge flooded swamp with dead trees poking out of it. And I'm like, I don't remember the guy's name. I'm like, can we take the doors off your helicopter? He's like, sure. So I went up. I'm like, that's as from a photographic standpoint, there's lots of pretty pictures of elephants and mountains and waterfalls and all that. It's like, but you're the subject. Often it's like you're the subject. You got to get away from yourself or that barge with the jeeps on it.
Yeah, it gives the image the context.
This is before drones, so it was like this. Helicopter time was like crazy expensive. So getting the opportunity to do that, I was like, yeah. So helicopters. Poorly maintained Cessna 186s. What are you going to do?
Well, you hope for
Here
the
I am.
best. You hope for the best. So, when did you do Antarctica? Because was that 2012?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
That was just like such a crazy trip. I remember like being at the office with Scott, who's doing a lot of the planning for that trip.
Right.
One of my things before, he's like, I just put an Anatov on my credit card. And that was, you know, like
Right.
to get the Expedition 7 vehicles over there. And I mean, that had to be, we talk about, you know, exotic trips, but then maybe there's a way that you can do them. I don't think there's a way that you can do that one. That is a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know, with Greg Miller and Scott and Expedition 7. What was it like? Because you guys left from Cape Town.
Correct.
I believe. Getting on a plane in Cape Town, you know, like a Russian transport plane. We're on this theory of, you know, this concept of aircraft and whatever. Flying over the Southern Ocean, you know that you're landing in Antarctica. What was going through your mind then?
The interesting thing about that flight, and you're correct, it's on a cargo plane. So they put in the number of seats that they need, and then you got a big cargo net, and all the cargo's in the back. So one of our vehicles was in the back, and we had probably 40 people strapped into seats. And you're on an on-call for the flight, and it's all dependent on weather. So they're watching weather at Novo, which is the Russian air base, basically, that we're going to land on an ice airstrip. And they're looking for weather windows because once that plane hits halfway across, it can't turn back. You can't get...
Is it a fuel?
It's a fuel issue. It's a range issue. Yeah. So when they call, basically you need to be able to be wheels up, and I think it was 2 hours. So you're kind of on a standby. When they say go, we're going.
Yeah.
And took complete excitement. I mean, like you said, that was one of those... The Expedition 7 project about doing all 7 continents is like, man, it's awesome. I was the editor of the magazine at the time and putting in a huge number of hours. I'm like, I couldn't break myself away to do the Russia side or Africa, but Antarctica at the beginning, I was like, that's the one I want to do. If there's an availability for it, that is the one to do.
I mean, the rest of the lakes you could feasibly do yourself.
And I'd done a lot of them.
Yeah.
You know, I've driven across South America, and I had been in Australia a number of times, and Africa a number of times. So, but Antarctica is like, it is somewhat the unobtainium, largely to do with logistics and the cost. I mean, because it's it's just super expensive, not within my means.
Yeah.
So I was super glad to be able to be part of that. Just exciting. I loved the entire trip, you know, from loading stuff up in Cape Town.
And how long, once you got to Novo, how long did it take to get to Scott Edmondson Station?
So we were a couple days in Novo, getting final preps.
Yeah.
Getting with Geesley, getting all the vehicles
because the Arctic Trucks
up.
guys were kind of they handled the logistics the way I understood it, and they had the rest of the vehicles in the convoy.
Yeah, well, there were 2 vehicles. So one was Greg Miller's, and one was one of the Arctic Trucks.
Okay.
That was rented, you know, for the time. So they're like the go-to logistics people, and that, you know.
Yeah, because wasn't their thing that they like drag fuel to the South Pole Station?
That is different. That's from McMurdo.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's from McMurdo to South Pole Station. They drag, basically it's a fuel train.
Yeah,
and they've got
these big bladders that they drag across the wall,
like 4,000 liter bladders, and they've got 16 of them on a sledge, and big heavy equipment. They've got one that's a couple that haul the sledges. Another one's a accommodation for sleeping. Another one is for cooking. And it's just a big train. They do it twice a year. They run that twice a year, and that's what fuels the South Pole Station. But so it was. It's interesting because you have to go back and look at days because it's 24/7 daylight, and it's not like you're traveling for 8 hours. The plan was to travel for 20 hours, and then have a 10-hour rest period.
Okay. Which
prevailed for maybe the first 3 cycles, and then it was that we were wondering. We wanted to go all the way across.
Yeah.
That was the plan. If we got to South Pole Station with enough time to get all the way down to the Ross Ice Shelf and turn around and go all the way back, backtrack 3,500 kilometers.
Yeah, the
And-
distances are just huge. I mean, what's the terrain like? Like that's always been like a question that I've had is like it seems relatively smooth, like you're driving across a, smooth lake bed. I mean, presumably it's not all smooth.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the ascent and descent off of the plateau, you're basically climbing, 8,000 to 10,000 feet up through glacier fields
Wow.
because you're coming from the coast to the Antarctic to the plateau, which is high elevation. And that
I
is
never realized it was like that high.
yeah, and that's the sketchy part because all that's moving. The plateau
Yeah.
generally is fairly static, and you're not dealing with crevasses and all
Yeah.
that. But those, the ice flows is what you're climbing, going up and down.
Yeah, that'd be sketchy.
And yeah, so everybody's tethered. We followed a track that Geesley and Immel and the Arctic Truck guys had GPS'd with ground penetrating sonar.
Oh, because
a year prior.
That's what they hang out
They had a big
on,
boom,
like the crane
exactly.
thing.
And they did this a couple of years prior, and that basically is the track that we used.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Honestly, Matt, for me, I love the entire thing. The cold temperatures, the wind, and you can't say it was really cold because it might have been like minus 40.
Yeah.
And I got friends in North Dakota that were, had pinged me afterwards, said, that's not cold. For me, it was being so far removed from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And, with the understanding, it's like, there's nobody here to help you if something goes wrong, not for a while. And then, on that same note, I think we're a bunch of wimps,
Yeah.
because I've read about Shackleton and Amundsen and Scott.
Yeah.
And these guys, it's like when they kiss their wives goodbye, that might have been it.
Yeah.
And for many of them, it was. These guys were super tough. So
Yeah, my homeboy Scott never came back.
it was, it was an amazing trip, and there were some hardships, but nothing serious. Nobody lost an arm, nobody died, and nobody got frostbite. It was cold.
The interpersonal would have to be probably pretty tough. I mean, you're in a car for 20 hours, and then congratulations, you get to go into a tent in negative 40 degrees. Like it's kind of like,
So
no, I'd rather
funny-
just keep driving.
Funny story. So Nemo had given us tents. Cam at Nemo had given us some individual tents, and then we
Yeah.
had an Arctic oven, which was a dual-layer, larger, like mess tent. The first rest period, we crawled into our tents and did our thing. That was enough. It's like that. It was cold.
Yeah.
And we had good equipment.
Good
equipment.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with the tent, but it's like the double layers of that Arctic oven. So after that, we all piled into the Arctic oven. There was enough room to lay down our
that's
sleeping
kinda cool.
bags and
Yeah.
stuff. So, yeah, that was a cold night.
You get
It was chilly.
you're getting pretty close with your buddies there.
That was fine. The Arctic oven was, there's plenty of room.
Yeah.
And there's a point where, whether it's sleeping or changing your clothes or going to the bathroom, it's like you lose all sense of modesty when it's just like you've got a goal, you've got a job. It's like, okay, well, it's like this is just the way it is.
Yeah, that other stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it falls aside.
It doesn't matter. People will be like, "Well, what's it like going to the bathroom?" I'm like, "It's cold. You do your stuff fast.
You're not.
There's
you're
no
not,
dilly dally.
You're not sending memes on the can to your buddies.
Not. You're not reading the newspaper. Cleaning yourself is with handy wipes, which everything is frozen. So your handy wipes, you either could heat them up on the dash or you put them under your armpit for a while.
Yeah, I'm just imagining ice cold handy wipes on my tender bits, and
It's great. It's invigorating.
but I mean, you think how far all of this stuff has come. The fact that a private expedition can drive across Antarctica successfully. That's just a really cool thing. We've been talking a lot about progress on this podcast and how these places have changed. And would you have been able to do that 20 years ago prior to that trip? Maybe not. I know Arctic Trucks really revolutionized a lot of stuff in Antarctica. Not on the necessarily even just like the tourism side, but they're there to work.
Logistic support.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do a really, really good job of that. Yeah. So could you have done it 20 years ago? you would have had to figure out some other plans because
Yeah.
Arctic Sharks wasn't there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will always be, happy and grateful that I was able to be part of that, that project. And I use the term expedition very, very lightly.
Yeah.
I hear that thrown around a lot, and I'm like,
I mean, I think that one, with how it's
it
thrown
does qualify.
around, that qualifies.
Yes, Australia in 2019. And I called it the East-West
Oh, the Jeep
Australia
trip.
Jeep Expedition.
That was considerable, yeah.
So it was a 50th anniversary recreation of a 1969 East-West Australia trip. So, of course, we started on the most eastern point and went to the most western point.
What's the
Steep
easternmost point of Australia?
Cape Byron.
Cape Byron, and then the westernmost is
Steep Point.
Steep Point, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that kind of north of Exmouth?
Yeah, north of Exmouth and Monkey Bay. And,
Yeah.
So that one, and I've been to Australia a number of times, as I mentioned, and I've been across the Simpson Desert a number of times, been up through the Kings Canyon area and Palm Canyon, Ayers Rock, and so we did some of that. But the really cool part of this is that we had special permission to cross the northern Simpson. So most people are going on QAA, they're going across the French line.
And did you cross that east-west?
Yes.
Okay,
From
cool.
east to west. So
we
we
kind of crossed the Colson Track, because that's the one that is still permitted, but you have to kind of...
It's permitted, and that one will take you up towards Alice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So we did
that's
cross
really
that track. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we started at a place called Beachcomber, which was just basically like 250 miles total. Our goal was to try to make 40 miles a day, 35 miles a day, because we're going east to west. The dunes and the
Dunes are
Simpson
higher.
go north-south. And there was, and there was no sport. So, other than the fact that, if we had to, we had a sat phone.
Yeah.
And we had two of the original expedition members.
Oh, wow.
John and Ian, who was the videographer and the team leader from the 1969 part. And that was like, to me, that was a highlight.
Yeah.
He said there's lots of beautiful mountains, waterfalls, deserts, whatever.
How old were those guys when you redid it?
80s.
Oh, wow.
Early 80s.
That's a considerable undertaking for an 80-year-old guy.
And I was so glad that we could
Yeah.
bring them along because they had not seen that desert for 50 years.
Jeez.
And to listen to the stories that they had around the campfire. And again, when they left, they had an old military Vietnam era radio with a long wire and a crank, and like they had zero communication with the outside world pretty much because it just didn't work. And so I had a huge amount of respect for them. They were in, 1960s Jeeps with tall, skinny tires and homemade sand ladders. And I mean, they really, both of them drove the JL that I was driving. And they both commented, they're like, I can't believe how good these tires go. And you just turn it and step on the gas and it goes.
Well, but having that perspective and realizing that we are in the golden age of four-wheel drives.
Yeah.
And I encourage everyone to drive a vintage four-wheel drive off-road because you realize
Absolutely.
how easy we have it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was...
Without button lockers and all that stuff and low gears, like in power steering and all this, yeah.
I remember being a really green kid, when I started at Overland Journal, and I had like a TJ on 35s or whatever, and I thought I knew how to drive. And then I traded that for a 71 Land Rover 109.
Came from that ranch or
yeah,
it was a
down
tour.
in Texas.
Still had
or
the
something.
graphics on it.
Yeah,
Safari.
it was such a cool car
Yeah.
to be 21 in
Oh, yeah.
Prescott. That was.
I'm like, where did this kid get this car? That's awesome.
I traded a clapped out rusty Jeep for it because I think the guy was like, he probably felt that he was getting away with murder, getting rid of the thing, and I thought I was getting rid of, But the brake work, the throttle work, the fact that you have to. Okay, if I'm at too much of an angle, I've kind of my foot has to be in the brake, but then my other foot kind of has to be, feathering the throttle because at a certain angle, the car will starve of fuel, or the brakes didn't work in in reverse as much as they did. So like, I remember like there's this one photo of me on 3 wheels of this thing. And what I remember about that photo, I think you were maybe there that day. We did like a team building thing.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
And
yeah.
I'm like on 3 wheels of this thing. And they were a twin leading shoe drum brake front and rear. So they didn't really work well in reverse. And I remember my foot like throbbing on the brake pedal because I had to push so hard. But these days it's just like, oh, the car auto holds for me.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole nother podcast.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just on that, on just that subject, I've got Edla, my expedition Jeep. It crossed the Darien Gap, sure. It is a stock Jeep.
Yeah.
It has a 2-inch lift.
It's so cool. It's orange. It has like this beautiful patina to it. Like it looks like it's been used. It has all the graphics. Yeah. Oh God. I mean, that has to be one of the coolest Jeeps in existence.
I'm just thrilled that I own it.
Yeah.
I'm amazed.
How many of them are still around from?
Well, there were 5 originals.
There were 5.
And they're all still around.
They're all still around.
They're all still owned by the families, So Mark's family
still owns
Patty
them.
has his. It should be back at, I think it's going to be back at the front of the Jamboree office.
Okay.
Tim Stegan still has his. He was the youngest guy on the trip in '78. And he runs his on the Rubicon. He's a Jamboree guy.
He's still doing it.
Yeah, runs it every year. So Kevin's got his, Kevin Arnold, which Mike Arnold was an OG. And so basically they're all there. And but to my point on having auto hold brakes and all that stuff, so I did the 70th Jeepers Jamboree in Edla. It's like I said, 2-inch lift. It's got 32-inch tires. I went through the axles. I put in limited slips, but it doesn't have low gears other than stock.
Yeah.
That was the funnest Rubicon run I've done in decades.
Well, those vehicles then were just of an appropriate size. Like you park a CJ7 next to even a 2-door JL.
Yeah.
And it's
tiny.
You park it next to a side-by-side and it looks tiny. You don't have to have 37s and, a 8 million RTI score to do the Rubicon when you can drive around the rock instead of having to flex over the rock.
But what it did, Matt, it brought me back to like the 80s and my first early days going up on that trail or on Fordyce or Ducey or Bear Lake, where we didn't have gears. They just, you could do ring and pinions, but they didn't have transfer case options.
Yeah.
You didn't have big tires where 33s were big tires.
Yeah.
And I didn't have power steering, so you learned how to pick your lines very carefully and pay attention to everything. So taking Edla back up, sure, I got hung up. I got pulled off rocks here and there.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. I had a blast. And I was with all the guys from Gen Wright and their, the 60-40 club, so Dana 60s, 40s, LS3s.
Yeah.
And, we were all kind of running together, and at camp, they were like, man, you guys, we got to build like some stock rigs like collards over there and just do like this vintage run. I'm like, you should do it. It's like
That'd be a lot of cool.
Yeah. So the new toys are amazing, but they make us lazy. I mean, because I have a rock rig and it's point and shoot. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. These vehicles these days are so capable. Like, in the little Overland world, I think of like how comfortable and crazy and do it all these vehicles are. Yeah. I mean, we have these rock crawler pre-runner Overland hybrid things that can go 80 mile an hour down a dirt road, and they're pretty good in technical terrain. And then they have a camper on the back, and maybe that's not a good idea, and maybe the back to basics is really where it's at, says the guy that's currently sleeping in an Earth Roamer. But
so what's the best vehicle for expedition travel? I've had this question posed to me many times.
Yeah. I mean, the 70 series, I think.
I'll give you a better answer. The one that keeps running.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
the one that makes you smile when
that
you're
one's
behind
the
the
70
window
series.
and keeps running. It's like like I said, drove Hummers around Africa and Jeeps across Australia and all kinds of different vehicles.
Most cars are pretty good, but you're right. It is the one.
It's the one that keeps running and makes and puts a smile on your face. You're like, I just like driving this thing. It's great. I trust it. You know, I got an '02 Tacoma with 340,000 miles on it. I continue to maintain it, but I trust it.
Yeah.
And that's what
Well,
I
you
need.
know it.
I'm running solo down in Mexico doing whatever. It's like I need to be able to trust that vehicle. I need to know the vehicle, be able to,
Yeah.
if I fix it if I have to,
Yeah.
which I have at times.
Didn't you have a big wiring problem down there recently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently 340,000 miles, mostly on dirt, will do that.
No, it was not. I was racing Nora with a team, and we were outside of Loretto, camped, and because it was a low budget race, right?
Yeah.
We're not Robbie Gordon. No, I had dual batteries, and the mount shifted, and it shorted out on the hood, and it chased every ground through the vehicle, like just vaporized the grounds, which are like 6-gauge wire, and chased all the grounds through my wiring harness under the dash, so everything went up in flames and smoke, and that's a whole nother story. But I was miraculously able to fabricate grounds, and it ran. I didn't have lights, I didn't have windows, but it ran.
It's the benefit of simple vehicles.
And I was able to get home.
Yeah.
So, and after I got home, I realized the whole harness was smoked, and I pulled the whole dash out. And I learned about 20-something years worth of dust under my dash and in the vents. I was like, holy moly.
Well, now it's ready for another 20 years, but well, Chris, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on this. Over the years, I've learned so much from you, and I really appreciate that. And your contributions to this industry are just unreal and crazy. And thanks for all that you've done for this space and all the inspiration for the millions of people that have read and seen your work. So thanks for coming out.
Well, Matt, it is a pleasure.
Yeah.
Like you said, how old were you when you came on at the Journal?
I was 20 or 21. Yeah.
Something? Yeah, 21. So it's a pleasure being on the show.
I
And
can
it's
grow a
been-
beard now.
It's been, look at that. You got hair, facial hair.
I have a mustache.
Mine's all gray.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of the things I love about this industry is some of the people like you that you basically come up through the ranks. When I found out that you were working down at Panama Passage, and I'm like, no way, this guy's like, why wasn't I doing that when I was 20? I was doing what people told me I was supposed to do. Like,
I don't
go to
remember
college.
much about Panama
Yeah.
Passage. I do remember once falling over the gate drunk.
Okay.
There was this 21-year-old kid from Chicago that had a never-ending supply of people that wanted to party. That was a bad idea.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
learning curve. But it's super fun to be on the show, and I know that there are a whole bunch of campfire conversations we did not touch. So we'll have to
do this again.
Yeah, sounds good, and we'll continue this like around the fire tonight.
Yeah, I'd love that. So, anyways, thanks for joining us here with Chris Collard on the Overland Journal podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right, see you guys.